Hi, welcome back. Continuing with behaviorism, we're going to look at another one of the primary concepts, and that's operant conditioning. So unlike classical conditioning, when things become automatic or a habit by the constant pairing, operant conditioning is when a student is going to do something because of how their environment responds. So if you think about table points, right? Like, I want you all to be listening now. Whichever table is showing me they can listen, I'm going to give them a point, and that eventually leads to something. And that's the idea of using different reinforcers. And reinforcers are when a consequence will increase the probability of a response. You're going to do something in hopes that they will continue to do something. So some examples of this are verbal praise. A student raises their hands, shares something very thoughtful, and you note that, right? And so now in the future, it should be more likely that they continue to participate and provide thoughtful comments. Things like stickers, putting a star on a paper, saying good job, all of that is used as reinforcement in hopes that students will continue to turn in that type of work. Participation points in grades, our whole system of grades really is the idea of positive reinforcement, giving even a thumbs up, a high five, highlighting student work, so selecting kind of some of the examples that could be used in the future, or displaying really high quality work should, theoretically, should reinforce putting a lot of work into the assignment. Positive note home, instead of saying like, I'm only going to call home or send notes home if something bad has happened. Instead saying, oh, I just caught you doing something great. I'm going to call home, or I'm going to send an email to say how impressed I was. So that should reinforce and increase the likelihood it will happen again. Offering free time, having a class party. So I see a lot of classrooms which will try to rack up points or marbles. And once you get to a certain amount, then the teacher might have a pizza party or something like that. In my daughter's school, they use Happy Hawks, but having tickets or money, when you see something that reinforces principle of the school, that you're going to note that, and then a student be like, oh yeah, I was being responsible, I'm going to do that again. In one of the optional articles for this week, one district tried to actually pay high school students to get good grades, and the idea is that money should reinforce turning in homework, trying to increase your grade, and that should reinforce that. Spoiler alert, it didn't work, but theoretically it should have. At home, here's an example of how we use positive reinforcement. So my whole goal is just to have a peaceful morning. I just want to get out of the house without a fight, without arguments. I just want it to be calm. That has not been the case in our house all the time. And so we have started this chart where there are 3 things my daughter needs to do in order to earn tablet time after school. So she needs to have her clothes picked out the night before, so we're not fighting about clothes. She needs to clean up her breakfast so that it's not messy in the kitchen when we're heading out the door. And there needs to be no drama. That means we're not getting mouthy with each other. If she can do those 3 things, we'll X them off, and then she gets Y. Yes, she gets tablet time after school. Okay, and so it should reinforce those behaviors that contribute to a peaceful morning. I've seen a lot of different classroom systems that rely on positive reinforcement, such as Class Dojo, which you get points for completing certain tasks or behaving in a certain way, and even just, our grading scales, right, and how we reward certain learning behaviors. Continuing with operant conditioning, we also have negative reinforcers. So again, reinforcers we're trying to increase the probability of a response or a behavior. So a negative reinforcer is actually when the student wants it to go away. So they will do something so that whatever's in the environment will stop. And I have this little bear with a seatbelt on because what happens when you drive in your car and you don't have your seatbelt on? The annoying dinging. It's like ding, 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 ding. And that noise is going to keep going until you buckle your seatbelt, right? So it's a negative reinforcer. You want that sound to stop, so therefore you buckle your seatbelt. That is a negative reinforcer. I see this in classrooms all the time. So maybe a teacher saying, you know what, I'm going to wait until everyone's quiet. And we'll just wait and wait and wait until it becomes very uncomfortable, or students really want to go on to the next thing, and so everyone gets quiet. If you've ever heard or said, if you don't finish this now, it's homework. Well, students don't want homework. So they're like, I'm going to work extra hard now. Okay, so it's increasing the likelihood that they'll be engaged with that task. If you've ever seen someone standing over a student until they engage with the task or start doing something like, I'm just going to stand here until I see you working on what we're supposed to be doing. Well, they want you to go away, so they'll start doing it. Also, telling students that they will have to redo or keep working on something until they complete it accurately or correctly. So whether that means practicing the vocabulary over again until they show you and you can check it off, or having to redo or rewrite things until you check it off, those are negative reinforcers. We also have punishments, and punishments are different than negative reinforcers because they want you to stop a behavior. They're not trying to necessarily increase the target behavior. They're trying to stop something, like a student saying something really mean to someone else. There might be a punishment because the teacher does not want that to continue to happen. Or a student calling out answers or being distracting, or a variety of things that a teacher might want to stop or a school might want to stop. So first of all, it can be removing a positive reinforcer, by, if they had done this, they would have received free time or a treat, but saying, sorry, I saw this, or you didn't complete this activity, and so you are not going to have that reinforcer. So that is their punishment. They are missing out on that. Sending a student out of the room or removing them from an activity, that's a punishment. Changing a student's seating, saying like, it looks like you can't work with this team collaboratively, so you're going to have to sit on this island over here, or you're going to have to sit in the back of the room. Detention, suspension, expulsion, all of those things would be examples of punishments. What we have found is that what we found is that punishments do not work. We'll talk about that in the final video. If you're trying to change learning behaviors, punishments are not going to help you get there. Whereas positive reinforcements might at least get you kind of more of a short-term, move you in a short-term direction towards that. For reinforcers, we've also found that they're usually more effective in elementary and middle school and less effective in high school. So I think that's something interesting to think about, especially for those of you who are working with teenagers. And some people suggest that teenagers are much more self-sufficient, so trying to bribe them with a gel pen if they do something, or putting a star in their paper is not something that's going to increase the likelihood that they continue to do it. Because they can do those things on their own, or they're not even interested in them. And sometimes some of those reinforcers that work in the early years by saying, everyone stop, let's look over here what Monica has done. Like, let's give her a round of applause. Look what she's accomplished. Where it might be really effective in a kindergarten or first grade class, you try that with 10th graders. They're like, why are you doing this right now and humiliating me in front of the class? And so some of that changes over time. That they are, as I said, much more self-sufficient, and then sometimes they just kind of see through it, right? They have more agency. They're empowered to see, I see what you're doing here, but you're not going to manipulate me with your little reinforcers. And so it's something to think about depending on the age that you work with.